Today, we are going to talk about rows before hose. So you cannot be, some like zombie on your iPhone walking in stuff to all around the gym. I almost ran over somebody at 24 Hour Fitness. I had to go there was icing because somebody wasn't paying attention doing farmers walks, or looking at all the scenery around the gym. You need to concentrate on what you're doing. So that's just a funny play on words of a rap song. But what this is about is it's pure intentionality and focusing on the muscle we're working here. So this was not like, it's not like go crazy, type of video. This is more of a feel out the contraction. We've also talked before in the past about if you have an upper back weakness, bodybuilding, powerlifting. A lot of people in powerlifting, bad posture, things all day. You can beat your upper back up. You can do a lot of work. So the limiting factor oftentimes becomes your lower back. So if you could hit some sort of rowing movement all the time, chest supported, and have good recuperative ability. So people I work with, I've noticed you can never make universal statements, principle of individual differences, of course. However, what it does come down to is a majority of people can hit their upper back pretty hard and pretty often compared to other muscle groups, as long as they're not frying their lower back. So like a lot of times a true bent over row could be more taxing on your lower back than even like a deadlift. So of these movements today, only one's gonna be kind of pretty taxing on your lower back. So we got 5 rows we're gonna show you. So rows before hose, here we come. We got the legendary Joe Robinson right now here, beefed up to 280 pounds of raw steel and sex appeal. Look at the dude. I mean, he's just jacked right now. We weren't really going balls out today. He was doing the movements to show you guys how to do them, but I think you still got a lot of it. Ended up you got a lot of it, huh?
Yeah, I still got a lot of it. The one thing I liked about the exercises, everything we did was no wasted movements. So I'm a big stickler about that. I really like the bands because you get a positive and negative contraction and a feel on both ends of the movement. So it's like the best bang for your buck.
It's the term we use for that right there is called training economy. Like Joe said, the most bang for your buck, and that's how we want to do it. And you look at like some of the movements we're doing, like for instance with the bands. So how do bands come about? Because on the dumbbell you feel that pretty good through the whole range of motion at the bottom, right? Because the way we position it up on it, right below your elbow, right there, it actually gives you a good stretch to the bottom and a great peak contraction at the top. So that band was at belly button level, a little higher than normally it would be. And so he's pulling it to his hip, and it's almost like he's trying to wrap his lat around his back, like he had a tattoo back there. It's like a tramp stamp, and he's trying to hit it back there. I guess.
Also,
lack of a better term.
Also, with that dumbbell, as you can see, the dumbbell was only 50 pounds, and that band made the contraction feel like a normal row for me, say 130, 140 pound dumbbell. So I felt the exact same thing, same contraction, or even a much better mind muscle connection with that 50 pound dumbbell and that band that I did, say, with a 140 pound dumbbell.
And there's no way with a heavy dumbbell, if you've ever done before. The thing I like about the heavy dumbbells, so like you've seen on here before, we've shown Branch Warren doing 250 pound dumbbells time sets of 30 seconds. So by no means we're trying to downplay them, but what they're going to do is they're going to work that bottom position a lot, get that good stretch on there. It's awesome. But you get up, you don't get as good of contraction here. This, with what we're doing, you feel like it's like the entire way. There is, like Joe said, there's no wasted movement because, it overloads it's pretty difficult in most movements to really overload the entire thing. And that's what it does right there is by your pulling, you feel it throughout, entire, entire movement. So it was exciting. And then the other band movement, how that came about was, they don't have the chest supported row here anymore. What I was planning on, was going to use. So we just, luckily here, Joe said we can improvise, the way he stood up, got the same effect because we're trying to save the lower back. Well, if you go back to some of the older videos with Branch again, you look at, okay, so when I first observed Branch Warren, what was he doing? He said, hey, can you work with me? Sure, I'll work with you. So he must have thought I was a psychopath because I'm walking around the gym, like watching him with a timer, not mentioning what I'm doing. And I'm, timing his sets. Every set's 7-8 seconds. And I noticed, with Branch, you got a lot of good work at the bottom of the movement. Obviously, he's going heavy as hell. Good stretch at the bottom of the movement. But him and Johnny both were lacking there. And Matt was a peak contraction at the top. So, like, against conventional wisdom, because a row's going to be, it gets harder as you go up. So a band's going to make it harder. So logically, it may not make sense, okay? It's already overloaded at the top, so you're going to overload it even more. But that's exactly what we need. In these things, there are no rules. So, that's, hey, like we talked about before in the more kind of tactical type of training, like, always do explosive stuff first, never at the end of the workout. Well, I want to be explosive when I'm tired, so I'm gonna do a medicine ball as far as I can. When I'm dog tired, if it goes far, I got what I want. We're the same type of thing here. You can't be, just because someone, with a degree tries to box something in, doesn't mean it has to be. So this is a great way to work that peak contraction. This is not just bodybuilding. For powerlifting, what's everybody, get your upper back tight, scapular retraction, all that stuff people talk about, when you're bench pressing, I mean, and actively do it. I mean, what the hell do you think you're doing with a row when it's band resisted? Started off with the seal row. This has been, worked huge with the likes of like powerlifters like Jeremy Hornstra, Julius Maddox, James Strickland, on all sorts of big bench pressers and big deadlifters, all that stuff. So what kind of keep here is obviously your flat. A lot of times you're gonna have to get a bench and maybe elevate it somewhere. Luckily here they have a device for it, but if you don't, you could always just get some plates, stack it up a little bit. And what you want to keep in mind here is you want to really squeeze the glutes and brace the abs, so this will prevent any hyperextension of your lower back while you're going. You want to think about pulling your elbow more towards your hips and like straight up. And you want to pull the barbell all the way until it touches the bench or get really close. If it doesn't feel right going up quite up that high, you don't have to. And you want to use a good weight. So you don't want to make this into like a cheat exercise where you're just going partial. You want to get a good full contraction each rep, and it's a great way to row, and it's going to build your upper back and save your lower back. Next we're gonna talk about the row stop dead. And this is an interesting movement because when I trained with Brian Dobson at Metroflex Gym, we sort of did a variation of this where we would row up, hit the belt, and kind of stand up with it like that. But I saw Scott Stevenson, a bodybuilder, doing it online, similar to how we had done it exactly, except he added a nice twist to it. He didn't just row it up and stand up with it. He did the negative down, and I think that we would have got more out of the exercise had we done it that way. So we've been doing it that way. And what you do there is you pull the bar to your lower abdominal area, like where a belt would be, and it's sort of like almost like a strongman would do a log right there, or whatever. So you want to pull it up to your lower abdominal area, then you hold the bar there, and the way you hold the bar in that position is you forcefully contract your lats. I mean, it's pure muscle and tension right there. You're trying to just contract those suckers as hard as you can. So when you isometrically hold it there, you're gonna you're isometrically holding there. From there, like it's called dead neck, row stop dead. You perform a deadlift, and you'll have to keep you're gonna have to keep your lats 100% engaged as you're extending your hips right there to keep the barbell in. So that's how they're getting all the work, because you need muscle and tension, but they're basically gonna have to do their job if you're able to do that. Then you reverse down the deadlift part, by doing the hip hinge down, and you're holding the bar in place, and you keep the lats contracted in that shortened position as hard as you can, and then you do the same thing again. So you're basically as you reverse it, you're eccentrically lowering the bar with your lats. So you row, then you row it up, you stop, and then you deadlift, and that's how you do a rep right there. So on these, since you want to make sure you're holding that contraction for at least half a second. So you get a lot of time under tension. So I recommend these for like lower reps, for in the 3 to 6 rep range. So even for bodybuilders, like that 6 rep range. And you're probably gonna have to use about half the amount of weight you'd normally use. If you're rowing 405, you might have to do 205 or 185 pounds. Great movement, and it's crazy how much you feel your lats engaged in this movement. The banded dumbbell row, I got this movement initially from Nick Tuminello from Performance University, and it's a real good movement. So what you want to do here is a couple things to keep in mind. You put the band right below the elbow. You don't want to most people put it really low, like on the wrist, or like right on the elbow. You want to put it just right below the elbow, and you put the band a little higher, because most people that do it would put it at the bottom, on the floor. You want to do like at your belly button level, and from there you get down in a row position, back flat, parallel to the floor, and at the beginning you actually kind of protract, you get a stretch there in your lat, Then you pull the weight up, you know, with your feet are parallel. You pull the weight up to your hip right there. You want to, like, you think about pulling the weight almost like a J to your hip pocket right there. And the band resists the whole time. And when you get it up to there, you're going to hold that contraction for about a second and then lower the weight back down. And I always think when you do these, it's like you're like trying to wrap your lat around your back almost. Like you said that joke before about the tramp stamp, but that's sort of like reality of what you're trying to do. And you will feel your lat engage like nothing you've ever done before. It's an amazing movement. And again, I'd keep this one like lower reps, keeping it 8 or less reps, because you really, there's so much bang for your buck here. It's like overload the entire way. So you don't need to do a bunch of reps to get a whole lot out of it. I'd rather have you execute 6 to 8 perfectly for bodybuilding than to do, you know, 12 with improper form. The 2 up, 1 down seated row. Okay, that's we've showed you that exercise in the past before. We're going to do a little feature on it this time instead of just like a passing by in a workout. So what the deal on that movement is, you just do a typical seated row, and these were very instrumental in Corey Matthews, IFBB Pro. When I'm working with him to get his pro card, we did this movement because his back had to grow. And I remember that was one of the best compliments I've ever received, even though he didn't know he was complimenting. It was Ronnie Coleman looked at Corey and said, that's exactly what needed to happen with your back. Even though Ronnie didn't know that I was involved. Indirectly, I appreciate the compliment. So anyways, what you do is like a typical seated row. You're going to row the weight. You know, you do the full contraction there. You do the row back, or the eccentric negative part of it with one arm, okay? And you do it for 5 seconds at a steady tempo, okay? So pull it with 2 hands, do it back with 1, 5-second negative. So the only complaint I've had with people have heard talk about this exercise, most people like it, but after, you know, they've seen me do it before, was saying they feel it in their biceps. Okay, this is definitely, if you do not have a good mind-muscle connection, this would not be the exercise to do. You can develop your mind-muscle connection. We have videos of that before about, you know, isometrically, you know, contracting it before you do a movement, that kind of stuff. But this is not the type of movement, if you have bad mind-muscle connection, that you'd want to do. So this is for an advanced bodybuilders that have a good mind-muscle connection, i.e. Joe Robinson.
Yeah.
So finally, finish off with the chest-supported band-resisted row. So what that does, put the bands down there to resist. So we couldn't measure it, but the weight felt like it was probably the addition of like 120 total pounds when you get, so 60 pounds each side. Well, anyways, so there's not an exact percentage there that we've used, but what you want to do here is you're really focusing on that contraction. So instead of, you know, just you kind of going through the motions, you get there, you hold that contraction at the top, and it's a total overload right there because of that band pulling down. So it's crazy how much you can overload that movement. And this is good for, you know, a lot of powerlifters and stuff that, you know, you hear these different cues for bench pressing. You know, it's a great movement if you want to develop that type of specific strength there. It's great for bodybuilders. So a lot of bodybuilders train heavy, they train hard. So there's no lack of effort there, but they never really get, because you have, you know, a lot of times in bodybuilding, you got 2 different camps. You have sort of the, you know, peak contraction, you know, stereotypical, like we call them poodle dick type of crowd. They don't like to really push it very hard, but they're always getting a peak contraction. Then you have, you know, this is a rugged old bastards that, like, they just want to put some weight on there and they're going to move that weight no matter what. Personally, I can understand that mindset a little bit better, you know, but the difference is with people like that, you know, you can add this in and they're going to get so much out of it because they've never trained that way. They've never done a peak contraction, let alone overloaded it hellaciously like this.